been just over a week since Kevin Willard announced he was leaving Maryland men's basketball, and just 3 days later, there's a new buzz in College Park. We've also got plenty of Terps lacrosse to cover, including a shocking upset in New Jersey on this week's edition of The Left Bench.
But we need to be very thoughtful about who joins our team.
Welcome to The Left Bench, presented by Terrapin Sports Central. I'm Jonas Evans, he's Nathan Schwartz. And Nate, it's been a wild few weeks here in College Park.
Yeah, it sure has. I mean, the Kevin Willard saga was one for the ages, but the new era for Maryland men's basketball has just begun.
Absolutely, it sure has. Well, just 3 days after the Willard departure, Maryland men's basketball announced its new head coach, Buzz Williams. Williams, a 30-year head coaching veteran, has spent the last 6 as the head coach at Texas A&M. The Aggies finished 11th in the SEC in their last season before Williams, and once he took over, A&M made the tournament in each of those last 3 seasons. Before that, Williams spent 5 years at Virginia Tech. The Hokies made tournament appearances in all 3 of Buzz's last seasons, same way as A&M, but both Texas A&M and Virginia Tech didn't make it past the Sweet 16 with Williams at the helm. In fact, he's only made it as far as the Elite 8 once, and that was all the way back in 2012 at his first Power 5 job with Marquette. The tournament record may not be dominant, but if there's one thing Buzz and his staff have proven, it's that their teams get to the dance.
On my staff this past season, there were 110 years of experience with me. I would like to get as many here as fast as possible. We've adapted our style of play at each institution. We haven't been great, but we've been fairly consistent.
With a new coach comes a roster overhaul. Maryland only has 1 scholarship player remaining on its roster after being decimated by the transfer portal. The biggest loss for the Terps so far is Jacoby Gillespie, who will go home and play for Tennessee in his senior season. Deshaun Harris-Smith decided to stay local. He's headed to Georgetown. And as for Rodney Rice, he remains in the portal. Malachi Palmer and former Maryland commit Christian Jeffrey also landed on their future school. They'll both follow Kevin Willard to Villanova. All of these departures has forced Williams to be very active in the portal, and Maryland's new coach has already made 3 splash moves. Pharrell Payne and Solomon Washington will both make the move from College Station to College Park, following Coach Williams from Texas A&M. They will help fill out the front court, but in the back court, the Terps went within the Big Ten, bringing in Miles Rice from Indiana, now hoping to bring 2 servings of Rice to UMD for next season. And now to help us learn more about Coach Williams and the future for Maryland men's basketball, we're happy to bring on George Gerbo, who covers Maryland for the Washington Times. George, welcome back to the show.
Appreciate you guys having me. Thank you.
I just want to start with your immediate reaction when this first got announced. What stood out about Williams as a coaching prospect to you, especially with the quick turnaround that had to happen?
Yeah, just his seasoned ability. You know, he's been at multiple Division I programs in multiple power conferences in the ACC, in the Big East, in the SEC, and Big 12 before A&M made the move. And to have that kind of level with such a short turnaround, I can understand why Maryland didn't go the route of the highly touted assistant. A lot of people had Murray from Connecticut, or a guy like Tony Skinn, who was an assistant in Maryland, of course, coach now at George Mason. Why they wanted somebody with, you know, demonstrated success at a high major conference level. I can understand why that was the decision, especially without having an actual athletic director in place, only an interim in Colleen Sorum right now. So if you're Maryland, it's a little bit of a safe choice, but it's also probably the best safe choice you could ask for, given the environment, given how so many of the coaching vacancies were already filled in the first couple of weeks of March Madness before Maryland's run ended in the Sweet 16. And for them to get Buzz Williams is makes the best, I believe, of what the situation was.
Feels like everything came around so fast. Nobody really saw this coming up until a couple of weeks ago. But most fans are excited about the different coaching style of Williams. And so how do you think he differs from Coach Willard in that regard?
Yeah, you're gonna see defense. Willard's teams, especially the first year with Jameer Young, were known for their defensive tenacity, if not as much for the scoring. And the same even in the second year during Kevin Willard's tenure when Maryland missed the tournament. That was a very defensive laden team that, if only the 3-point shooting was not in the bottom 10 nationally, let alone in the bottom two of the Big Ten, Maryland would have had a better chance at an NCAA tournament berth even last season. So you're going to see defense, but the biggest thing is on offense. I think people, we might have got a little spoiled with the Crab Five and having most of your scoring come from your starting five unit. So much so that it was the highest starting five scoring unit in the nation. So you're going to see a little more of a deliberate pace, guys that average maybe in the 13 to 17 type of range, which honestly, if you look at Maryland's game against Florida, that's what Florida did to them. Guys like Walter Clayton and down the line, they were 13 points, 15 points, 17 points. It wasn't as fun as it was to watch Derek Queen scored 20 plus, or Rodney Rice or Jacoby Gillespie do that. Sometimes it's nice to have the balance. So I think Maryland fans can get used to more of a balanced style on offense, but also still a defensive tenacity and maybe a little more physicality. Though Maryland's teams were good defensively, it wasn't defensive physicality. And I think when you play in a league and against teams in the middle of the country and also the SEC, of course, A&M's a relatively recent member to the SEC, but when you play those types of those Texases and those Oklahomas, those old Big 12 teams, those are kind of built on physicality. And I think Williams comes from that mold a little bit. So expect to see that a little more on defense.
George, you mentioned the last year's team and how it ended for them. I'm curious about your perspective on how everything wound up these last couple of weeks with Willard leaving, all the press conference comments. I mean, you covered him for all 3 of his years with this program. So what'd you make of how things ended between Willard and Maryland?
Yeah, it's surprising. It's also is kind of you start to look back over the last couple of weeks and months. A lot of it feels premeditated. That the seeds of this departure were being sown, if not from that trip to New York that Willard publicly complained about, that he couldn't stay an extra night in New York City with his team, to even as late as the Big Ten tournament. There were seeds being planted that, hey, he's maybe looking for this opening at Villanova once Villanova fired its coach. So it's surprising in a little bit of an aspect, and of course Willard becomes a pariah in the fan base. It was always this up and down, guys. His first season, brought Maryland back after Mark Turgeon leaves in December. You have Danny Manning take over and lead an interim campaign that's kind of goes off the rails and never really materializes. And in comes Willard, and they win every game in his first season. They win every game except one at Xfinity. And losing to UCLA, who was a top 25 team at that point, and kind of got the spark back. And Jameer Young comes home, and it's just a lot of things. Don Carey came home, just a lot of things fell in place. And then year 2 struggled offensively. He relied too much on having 3 freshmen in the starting, or three freshmen, 2 of them playing significant roles in that lineup in Jamie Kaiser and Deshaun Harris-Smith. And now year 3, retooled it again, made it work. Crab 5, sensational, and to leave it like that leaves a bitter taste in a lot of Maryland fans' mouths, and it's not going to go away. And he's going to be public enemy number 1 for such a long time, if not forever, in College Park. There's really nothing you can do to fix that at this point if you're Willard, and he doesn't really seem to care that much about it. But it's just kind of the whole thing, the way it played out was bizarre, and the way he called out Damon Evans, who was already leaving, but maybe wasn't going to leave in the middle of the most successful season in 10 years for the men's basketball team at Maryland. Was probably going to leave at the end of the school year. And by Willard calling that out, now he goes and ups and leaves, does Evans in the middle of the tournament. And so it leaves the university in a precarious situation. And they still have to fill the athletic director vacancy, guys. That's still like a big glaring thing to me. We've got the NCAA House settlement coming down about how revenue sharing money up to $20 million that Maryland will get to be divided among its programs. The person that usually would be doing that dividing would be the athletic director, and they don't have one. They don't have a permanent one at this point. And that's something that needs to be addressed sooner rather than later.
Well, this Kevin Willard era and the leaving early is really relevant to what I want to ask you about Buzz Williams, because he hasn't spent more than 6 seasons at a program himself, and we just saw, Willard leaving having this massive impact. So if Williams does find some success in College Park, is there a chance, a reality where they can't hold on to him in the same way that they couldn't hold on to Willard?
I get why people are concerned in that line of thought. Though Williams, it's like 6 years, 5 years, 6 years, 5 years. So that's better part of a decade in a couple of those instances. It's amazing that he's coached for 20 plus years for as young as he is, only 52. And you get after talking to Gary Williams after the introductory press conference, you get the sense that maybe if it works out here for Maryland, that he will stick around this time, because he's coached at in pretty much every other league, as I mentioned earlier. Like where else? And the crazy part, and I didn't get a chance. We didn't have any time with him really during the press conference, so I didn't get a chance to ask him. But Texas is home for him. He was born in Texas, undergrad in Oklahoma. He got his master's degree in the A&M system, A&M Kingville. He comes back home to coach at A&M. To me, that sounds like home and a dream job. That, why would you leave that situation? So if it was enough for him to leave the state of Texas to come all the way back to the East Coast, because he led Virginia Tech prior to going to A&M and now comes back east again. If it was significant enough for him to leave what is considered home for him and a home job, then I think he does intend on this being, if not his final stop, but just a place of more permanence in a tenure that he can kind of make part of his legacy. His legacy right now is, he's got the Elite Eight appearance with Marquette, and his teams get to the tournament relatively frequently, but he's kind of missing that next hump. Whereas Willard, just this season, was his first Sweet 16 appearance in, a decade plus of coaching. So Buzz has a little bit of a better track record there, but I think he sees Maryland as a place that he can turn this into kind of the coup de grace of his career, and the signature part, when all is said and done, of his basketball coaching career can be done here at Maryland. So I think that's a guy that's a little bit older and that has already been to those schools. Willard, before coming to the Big Ten, was in New Jersey at Seton Hall for 12 years. So Buzz has done that. Buzz has been in all these conferences. I think that means he's going to stick around here at least as long as maybe he wants, but obviously the results have to come along with that.
George, and this has been great so far. We got one more for you. So it's pretty obvious that next year's team is going to be completely different. Chance Stevens is the only scholarship guy that remains from the Willard era. You have Payne, Washington, Rice, Miles, that is, coming over from Indiana so far. But going into next year, what do you think the expectations should be for fans, considering it's year one of a new era and there's going to be an entirely new team?
Yeah, we were down as low as 2 players when it was just Stevens and Derek Queen. Then Derek Queen declared for the draft, but obviously, a couple of his guys from A&M have come along, and also Miles Rice from Indiana, which is good to get guys that not only have Big Ten experience, but also just major conference experience, and a couple of Rice is a 10-point per game player. Payne is a 10-point per game player as well. So you like seeing that scoring variety in the lineup. I got a hard time, pegging where it's going to end up, guys, just because I don't want to rule out an NCAA tournament bid. And I say that only because I watched the SEC get a record number 14 teams in this year in their 16 team league. The Big Ten is an 18-team league now. We saw how vast the middle of the league was. So Maryland finished second in that upper crust, better. I thought they were going to finish fifth. I had them kind of high, and they exceeded that expectation. When you look at, I just believe that because you don't play as many teams twice anymore. Maryland played 3 Big Ten teams twice. Previously, they'd play 5 or 6 teams twice. So you kind of get a feel. You just have one game against some of these teams. And if you string the right things together, I'm not saying it's going to be crab 5 and they get a 4 seed, but them getting a 10 seed in the NCAA, can you win 18 or 19 games? I honestly, I don't think it's that beyond the realm of possibility. You stocked a roster so far, and a lot of that's going to depend on who the rest of these guys are, of course. If it's JUCO transfers or D2 transfers or mid-major transfers coming into a program and they don't have the bright lights, playing in a Big Ten conference, it'll humble you, and it'll humble you quickly as soon as the calendar turns to January and these games in the conference start kicking off. But I do believe that a tournament bubble type of thing is attainable, just because we're in the Wild West now of college sports, guys, and you just need to string together somewhere between 17 or 19 wins, and you're on the tournament bubble. We saw what the bubble looked like this year with a team like Carolina that won one quad one game, one quad one plus quad two game, and it got them in, and they got in the tournament. And it does not take as much, in my opinion, to be this great tournament team anymore, especially with how the big leagues are dominating that more than the mid majors. So I'm not saying pencil them into your bracket next year, not just yet, but I think that it with the right players, and as Buzz Williams continues to build this roster, it's not completely out of the realm of possibility that they could be a fringe bubble tournament style team next year.
It's a great point. The landscape, it just continues to change. Well, George, thank you so much. That's all we've got for you. Thanks for helping us unpack all of this.
Yeah, Jonas and Nate, appreciate it as always. Thanks, guys.
You can read and listen to all of George's coverage at thewashingtontimes.com and film on X at Gerbo3. We've talked about it the whole beginning of the show, but there's still so much to learn about Maryland's new hire.
TSC's Jonah Jansevich joins us in Studio B to break down the Terps' new head basketball coach. Jonah?
The past couple of weeks for Maryland fans has been more up and down than a Six Flags ride. The program loses its athletic director, made its first Sweet 16 since 2016. Derek Queen nails the shot of the tournament, and then Willard leaves for Villanova. But now it's time for Buzz Williams, who will be entering his 19th year as a head coach. As Jonas highlighted earlier, the past 6 he spent in College Station with A&M. Williams entered a program that had fired their previous head coach, Billy Kennedy, after 8 seasons in 2019. Williams had his work cut out for him. His first 2 years started off a bit rocky with a combined 12-16 conference record. But the 2021-22 season is where his work started to pay off. The Aggies didn't make the tournament, but their 18-4 non-conference record was a sign for things to come. Each of the last 3 years at A&M, Williams has made the tournament, and over that time period, the Aggies have a combined conference record of 35-19. The one thing missing from his A&M tenure is a deep tournament run, but some of his previous stops already checked that box. Williams' first head coaching job was with New Orleans, but he made the jump to the Big East with Marquette in 2008. He immediately hit the ground running with the Golden Eagles, making the NCAA tournament 5 straight times. His success with Marquette culminated in 2013 with a Big East regular season championship and an Elite 8 run. Williams then took a job with Virginia Tech. Similar to A&M, the Hokies were in a world of pain before his arrival. His final 3 years in Blacksburg saw 3 tournament runs and 1 to the Sweet 16 in 2019. Fast forward to the present day. Last week at his press conference, Buzz made it clear it was about the name on the front. The team, the team, the team. He said that phrase about 35 times, a message he's hoping to get across to fans and his roster. The team isn't the only thing Williams is known for. It's his play style and it's gritty. Let's take a look at some of his stats at A&M that jump off the page. During his 6 years in College Station, Williams' offenses averaged an offensive rating of 103.35, ranking 164th in the country during that time period. In comparison, the Crab Five's offense last year had the 33rd ranked offensive rating with 113.7 points per 100 possessions. Sure, the offensive average isn't crazy, but let's look at his improvement over the years with the Aggies. The first 3 years, A&M's offensive rating was 98.4. That's 236th in that time frame. The last 3, we see the improvement. The A&M offensive rating was 108.3, ranking 93rd in that time span. The defensive numbers are more consistent, though, and more synonymous with Williams basketball. Over Williams' 6 years, Texas A&M had a defensive rating of 99. In the meantime, the Crab Five had a defensive rating of 94.1, ranking 10th in the NCAA. This past season was special for Maryland, but looking to the past won't help college basketball. Buzz Williams will have to look to infinity or Xfinity and beyond to get the Terps back on top. Jonas, I think you missed the pink tie memo.
I definitely did. I like that too. Infinity, Xfinity, and beyond.
Yeah, that was awesome. But I mean, Buzz Williams, I mean, we watched the press conference of the whole thing. He just seems like the ultimate family man, the ultimate team guy. And that just is the kind of culture that I think this men's basketball program needs.
Yeah, and a little bit of a vibe switch between him and Willard. I don't think, Willard kind of had a little more serious approach, a little more hard-nosed approach, and I think it's interesting to see. You look at all the elite coaches across the board, everyone has a little bit of a different style. So we have a new head man leading the charge for Maryland, and he's got his own vibe to him.
Yeah, we'll have to wait and see.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, all right. Well, we still have to get into a lot of on-field action from this weekend.
That's right, a lot still to cover, including lacrosse, gymnastics, and baseball. It's all coming up after this short break.
Julie was always a voracious reader. She'd carry 2 novels on an airplane because she'd read one on a 3-4 hour ride. And at some point, I began to notice that she would read a page and couldn't remember what she had just read, and she'd have to go back and read it again.
I don't remember much these days after I read, but less does for me, and I love it.
Welcome back to the Left Bench, presented by Terrapin Sports Central. I'm Nathan Schwartz, that's Jonas Evans, and Jonas, it was a really, really rough weekend for Maryland spring sports.
Yeah, that's right, Nate. A lot of games and a lot of losses. Number 2, Maryland men's lacrosse continued its stretch of ranked opponents with the matchup at Rutgers. It's been an uncharacteristic season for the Terps offense, and scoring on the Scarlet Knights proved to be a problem on Saturday. Daniel Kelly opens the scoring for the Terps, but an incredible first quarter from Rutgers gets them 5 unanswered goals. That's a 5-1 lead. Maryland trying desperately to get back into it, but Rutgers goalie Carden Stoller has himself a day with 14 saves to stop any momentum. But Stoller's most impressive moment comes here in the third quarter as he scores Rutgers' 8th goal from his own net. Oof, a couple goals each from Braden Urksa and Eric Spanos make it a close fourth quarter, but the Terps just can't do anything about that first quarter run as the Scarlet Knights hold on for the 8-6 win.
Women's lacrosse made its first West Coast trip in the new landscape of the Big Ten. After grabbing a win on Thursday against Arizona State, the Terps took on USC in a top 20 battle. Trojans scored the first 2 goals, but that's no problem for Jordan Lipkin, who responds with 2 of her own. 3-2 Trojans after Lipkin's second. However, that is the last time USC leads. The Terps go on a 12-goal, yes, 12-goal run and lead 13-3 just 6 minutes into the third quarter. Maryland's attack dominates all day long and comes back to the East Coast with a 16-8 win.
Maryland baseball is yet to win a weekend series on the road this season, and the struggles continued at Illinois this weekend. After blowout losses in games 1 and 2, the Terps bats went completely cold on Sunday. Illinois pitcher Reagan Hall with a dominant display with 6 strikeouts in 6 innings as the Terps record just 4 hits on the day. That's tied for their lowest total on the season. Illinois, on the other hand, starting off strong with a 5-run first inning thanks to a Jacob Schroeder bases clearing double. And after just a few more runs from the Illini, this Colin Jennings homer in the 7th hands Illinois the 11-0 run rule win and the weekend sweep.
Maryland softball had a major shift in its schedule this weekend, playing the first game of its series with Indiana on Sunday night. After the Mercy Rule loss in that game, the Terps took the diamond on Monday for a doubleheader. The first game is the exact opposite of Sunday's game, when Maryland and Indiana combined for 30 runs in just 4.5 innings. The Terps' bats go ice cold, getting shut out 2-0. Not much changes in Game 2 for Maryland either. Maisie McFarland gets an RBI single to bring Maryland within a couple, but Indiana wins the final game of the series 6-3, completing the sweep.
Maryland gymnastics season came to an end last week after a hard-fought battle at the NCAA Regionals. The competition was absolutely stacked with number 1 LSU, number 16 Arkansas, number 17 Michigan competing. Maryland scored a season-high 196.825, but all three of those ranked opponents scored above 197, handing the Terps 4th in the meet. But it was a record-setting tournament for Brett Nelligan's squad. Alexa Rothenbucher's 9.9 individual score was a program record, and both Taylor Retch and Maggie Murphy set career highs on the vault. Maryland's 196.825 also set the program record in an NCAA regional.
While it's been a crazy few days for men's basketball in the transfer portal, women's basketball has been making moves too. 2 Big Ten transfers will be making their way to College Park. Gracie Merkel, a 6'6" center from Penn State, adds much-needed size for the Terps down low. As for replacing the shooting prowess of Cheyenne Sellers and Sarah Tibiasu, the Terps turn to Yarden Garzone, who comes over from Indiana and is a career 43% three-point shooter. While Freeze and her staff continue to look for portal additions, they'll have to do it without assistant coach Karen Blair, who has accepted the head coach position at Georgia Tech. Blair, recognized as one of the nation's best recruiters, was instrumental in the success for Maryland over the last decade. She helped lead the Terps to 3 Big Ten titles, 4 Sweet 16s, and a trip to the Elite 8 during her 7 seasons in College Park. But now she gets a chance to lead a Yellow Jackets program that just came off a first-round loss in the NCAA tournament. Now don't go anywhere, because when we come back, we'll swing by Studio B to relive some awesome moments.
Yeah, absolutely, and we'll also give you our Terp of the Week, Pro Terp, and Top 5 plays.
I don't remember how it started.
Go to that.
Our back and forth. It always came back. Dad! You probably don't remember what you told me,
That was perfect.
but I heard every word.
Welcome back to The Left Bench, presented by Terrapin Sports Central. I'm Jonas Evans, alongside Nathan Schwartz. And Nate, it's time to go down memory lane.
That's right, Jonas. We've had the opportunity to cover and be around a lot of amazing Maryland athletics moments over the last 4 years. So with our time dwindling down here, we figured we would do in reverse chronological order, not chronological, but reverse order, a ranking of some of our favorite moments over the last 4 years.
This was actually a little more difficult than I think we were expecting. There's been a decent amount of pretty viral moments, I guess.
There's been a lot. We have 6 honorable mentions. We'll get to them later, but we can start right at number 6, and I don't know if this is recency bias or
well, we discussed that it might be.
But Sarah Tibiasu, Sailor Poffenbarger, Cheyenne Sellers, this entire Maryland women's basketball team, they're down by a ton in the third quarter against Alabama, just a week or two ago in the NCAA tournament, and somehow they climb all the way back to win in double overtime.
Obviously a game that you called, and first of all, that environment, the tournament setting, the overtime, everything about that. It's why we love college basketball. It's why we love March Madness. Can you talk about that environment a little bit? It was pretty surreal, right?
It was unbelievable. I mean, it wasn't a sold-out crowd, but it felt like one. You know, I was sitting courtside, and I could barely hear myself make the calls that I was making because it was deafening, that building. And that just speaks to the buy-in from the fans. When a team is winning, when they're making plays like you're seeing here, like this one by McLean, and Sellers will finish this off with the and one. That moment in itself was one of the loudest times of that game for that building. I mean, Tibiasu was nailing 3 after 3. It was just an amazing game to be there for and to have the opportunity to broadcast. It was just surreal.
And honestly, for Cheyenne Sellers, like, it's her March Madness moment. I think she's obviously been such a committed member of this team for so long at this point. For her to kind of, she hasn't necessarily been the star, and I think this is kind of not necessarily her team, but like, she's really got her moment to shine in that.
Yeah, and it's her last game in the building. Yeah. So that'll take us right into number 5.
Number 5. This was a historic moment. Ryan Ramsey throwing a perfect game. This is not an achievement that you see in sports almost ever. It's one of the rarest. And for this to happen in College Park, it was pretty incredible. I would say the highlight of the baseball team, maybe the last 4 years we've been here. There's been a lot of good moments. We debated a few, but the perfect game, I mean, talk about that. That was,
I mean, you can definitely make the argument it's one of the best moments for the baseball program in the last 4 years. We'll talk a little bit about their later success later on in the segment, but what Ramsey was able to do that night, I was there at the ballpark that night, you just felt like there was something special going to happen, whether it was the 4th or the 5th inning. You didn't really pick up on it yet, but you're like, man, he is shoving right now. And then you get to the 6th, you get to the 7th, you're like, oh man, like every pitch means that much more. And then, you know, I had to record the final out on my phone. I have it in my scorebook. I mean, it was just such an amazing thing to be around. There's only been one more perfect game since then. It actually happened at the beginning of this season. But, man, perfect game, just the second one in Maryland history. So, I mean, that's as special as it gets, right?
And shout out TSC alum Judith Aldnew, who was there.
That's
got great coverage of it.
That's right. All right, moving right along here with number 4. Another moment from our freshman year. This goes all the way back to the very beginning in September of 2021 when volleyball took down number 2 Wisconsin.
I mean, first of all, Sam Sire, this was the introduction to the Sam Sire experience. You get to see what an incredible teammate, what an incredible hitter. Every level of this victory for them was stunning. And also the pavilion, like, this gives you a little sense of what an environment they have in there, because it was absolutely packed. It was rocking. This was one of the most shocking upsets we've seen from any of the teams across the board over the last few years. It came against a Wisconsin team that was just absolutely incredible, dominant year after year. For them to pull that off, it was really amazing to see.
Raynell Jones, I mean, that volleyball team was so talented. They didn't have the postseason success or anything like that, but that moment
the Big Ten's so tough.
Yeah, again, TSC was there, and Alex Gary, that was his first ever gamer, I'm pretty sure.
What a way to start.
What a way to start your time with a TLB, TSC, whatever it is. And we were also at this one, the Court Storm.
Also at the Xfinity Center. This was arguably the most viral moment. There's some other ones. Beating number 3 Purdue at the Xfinity Center. This was the highlight of, honestly, a season that, you know, also kind of maybe didn't go necessarily the way Terps fans wanted, but this was a moment. And Nathan Schwartz, you were in that pile right there.
I was in that pile. I think right now I'm on the ground somewhere in that pile. You know,
Brandon Schwartzberg, our very own Brandon Schwartzberg, I believe he was one of the first on the court.
He was. If I saw that again, I'd definitely be able to pick him out. But I mean, that was ridiculous, right? I mean, the line outside of Xfinity before that game, pretty much one of the best atmospheres that we've been a part of during our time here, whether it's as fans or covering the games as well. And that was a special night for not only the Maryland students, but the entire Maryland fan base in general. A night that Dante Scott,
exactly, guys like Dante Scott,
guys will never forget.
Jameer Young. I mean, this is, and it was a huge win too. I mean, it wasn't a close game. They put them away towards the end. It was
they went on that 29-4 run, I think it was. just an unbelievable game, unbelievable atmosphere.
And that's kind of what you dream of, right? As a college student, as a fan of the sport, court storming is kind of the essence of what we love about this.
A lot of unbelievable atmospheres. This one was one that came on the road, but for Maryland men's lacrosse, you can make the argument, Jonas, the best men's lacrosse collegiate team of all time.
I mean, it's a good argument. This was Logan Wisnauskas at his absolute best. This was a ruthless team. This was, I think, everything that you expect from a John Tillman team. The way they dominated game after game. I don't believe this one against Cornell was very close.
It was 9-7.
9-7, yeah. I guess it didn't feel super tense. They were so good all year. You had guys like McNaney making plays. You just kind of had everyone at their best in this moment. It was just kind of the perfect combination.
I mean,
of
the
players.
attack was ridiculous, right?
Yeah.
You had Wisnauskas, DeMayo, Donville, Kahn. I'm definitely forgetting a bunch of
There
other
were a ton,
people,
yeah.
but
we've had so many great attackers over the last 4
right.
years.
This was, and I don't think I'm making a stretch when I say this, the best college lacrosse team of all time. Undefeated. They didn't lose. They won the Big Ten regular season. They won the Big Ten tournament, and then they won it all. And that takes us to the best moment that we have witnessed at
I think this was a
school.
no-doubter.
Right. I think the picture speaks for itself, right? Derek Queen just a few weeks ago. We'll run the video here. The shot that shocked the world. Nobody expected Maryland to win this game after Colorado State hit that 3 to take the lead, but Derek Queen said, "Give me the ball."
And this was after everyone saying that we were having a boring tournament. He brought the madness. He brought the excitement. This was the first buzzer beater we saw. A freshman hitting that shot. Down 1-2. This is such a notable thing. He misses that shot, they're out of the tournament. He makes it, he gets the glory. And his draft stock went up a lot, I think, that night. I think that was a big moment for him.
And, the question can be brought up, does the Crab 5 get remembered as the Crab 5 if Derek Queen doesn't make that shot? Him hitting that fadeaway 2 immortalized Derek Queen into Maryland men's basketball lore, immortalized the Crab 5 into college basketball lore. And even though it was only 1 year, it's a team and a tournament run and a game and a shot that nobody will forget anytime soon.
Yeah, I'll remember where I was when I saw that for the rest of my life. It was it's moments like that that define the sport.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
and so that's the 6 best moments that we saw, but I have a ton of honorable mentions here. I'm just going to rattle them off. So we mentioned baseball a little bit. 23, they won the Big Ten title in the regular season and the Big Ten tournament title.
This was one of our debates for putting in.
Right. I also got to be at that one, too. That was a special one for me. Women's lacrosse making a run to the Final Four in 2022.
Yeah, that was a great team.
Just like the men's team did. Aurora Cordingley was leading that women's lacrosse team that year. They lost at Homewood, but still an unbelievable
That was such an intense
team.
tournament, too, towards the end, those semifinals. That was
When you run into Charlotte
Yeah,
North,
no.
there's not much you can do. The Pinstripe Bowl for Maryland football back in December of 2021. That started the 3 straight bowl wins for Maryland, and you have a fun moment there.
Featured that moment, Tulia Tagovailoa throwing the touchdown pass when Virginia Tech's new head coach was being introduced. I think one of the highlights of Maryland football across the board over the last 4 years. And that was, I think, a little bit of a career-defining game for Tulia Tagovailoa, kind of solidified himself as a winner at the program. But yeah, that moment specifically was really fun.
That was really funny. A huge win for Maryland there. Field hockey, winning a shootout against Syracuse in the Elite Eight at home to advance to the Final Four. I don't feel like that one's talked about at all.
Stakes were just as high.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I mean, it goes down to a shootout, and you somehow are able to pull it out. Paige Keft was amazing in goal for Maryland during that shootout period. She ultimately won Maryland that game and sent them to the Final Four. We had the Derek Queen buzzer beater, Diamond Miller.
Yeah, that's a personal favorite of mine as well. Yeah, and Diamond Miller, maybe another slightly underappreciated star of these last few years. I think just as a prospect, honestly, as an offensive threat, you saw it in the buzzer beater itself. She could get to her spot and get her shot every single time. That length, that touch, what a basketball player that was, and what a moment it was.
What a moment that was. And then the last honorable mention that we have, the Field Storm for Maryland football against USC just a couple of months ago. Maryland was down by 2 touchdowns in this game. It didn't feel like Maryland had a chance, and they get the touchdown. They go for 2. They get that blocked field goal. They go down. Edwards runs it in for the tie. Howells makes the extra point, and Maryland wins the game.
To think we tell ourselves freshman year that Maryland is going to beat USC at home, storm the field. I think you would have questioned a lot of the things in that sentence.
Absolutely.
Well, it's time for our Terp of the Week, and in honor of college basketball ending this week, we're giving it to Derek Queen. We talked about him already. He made a very special announcement this week on Friday's Sports Center at night with Maryland legend SVP. The freshman officially announced his commitment to the NBA draft in June of this year. He's looking to be the first Terp selected in the draft since Aaron Wiggins and the first-round selection since Jalen Smith, who was picked 10th in 2020. Most up-to-date mock drafts have Queen somewhere between picks 10 to 15, which would make him the first Maryland freshman in program history to be drafted in the first round, but could go even higher than that. We don't know. I mean, I think we might get surprised in the next few months. His stock continues to rise.
Could be top 5, could be top 3.
Maybe.
We'll see. But for our Pro Terp, since it's officially baseball season, my favorite, we had to go to the big leagues where Brandon Lau is hitting the cover off the baseball. The former Dirty Terp has 3 homers so far this year, with 2 of them coming in the last week. He's hitting .306 to begin 2025 as he begins his 8th season in the majors. Congrats to Brandon on a great start to the season and for being this week's Pro Terp. And Jonas, that'll take us into our second to last top 5 plays.
Yeah, I'll get us started here at number 5. Eric Spanos finishing off the face-off win for the goal. Takes it and puts it right in the corner there, and what an intense transition attack they have. You saw it last week against Penn State. It continued against Rutgers, even with that disappointing loss.
Number 4 out to Illinois Field. Just a routine line drive up the middle, but for Eddie Hagopian, his 200th hit in a Maryland uniform. He's the captain for a reason, and a great piece on this one.
At number 3, we've got Alexa Rothenbucher with a 9.9. This was a record-breaking score, the program record for Maryland gymnastics at the NCAA regionals, and a personal best for herself. What a flip there, and what a moment at the tournament.
Out to Indiana, where Sydney Lewis demolishes this one into the parking lot, where they got some tailgating going on in the outfield. A weekend that didn't go Maryland's way, but that swing certainly went Lewis's way.
And at number 1, we've got the freshman with the signature finish, top corner from Shelby Sullivan, as she just makes the space for herself and gets it past the goalie before she can even see it. What a finish there from the freshman. And that'll do it for this edition of The Left Bench. Matthew Noose and Alexa Wooten will return to the desk for their final show next week. We're wrapping up now.
I know, it's crazy, right? But in the meantime, keep up with all Terrapin Sports Central's coverage by subscribing to our YouTube channel, following us on X, Instagram, and visiting TerrapinSportsCentral.com.
We'll see you next time.